Welcome back to the ASX Investor channel and welcome to another CEO interview. Today we'll be diving into the biotech space and unpacking the story of Prescient Therapeutics. ASX PTX are playing right on the front line of next generation cell therapy treatments. They have on their hands an innovative technology platform called OmniCAR. They also own a number of foundational assets playing in the targeting therapy space. We're excited to be joined by the Prescient Therapeutics CEO, Steven Yatomi-Clarke. And in this interview, we'll be unpacking the opportunity that Prescient have with their treatments to make an impact for those experiencing cancer around the world. We hope you enjoy this one. Sit back and welcome to the channel.
Welcome to the channel and enjoy.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
It is an absolute pleasure. I guess before we dive into all of the exciting things that are happening within the portfolio, can you just give us that overview? Who is Prescient Therapeutics and what's that problem that you're trying to solve?
Prescient Therapeutics develops cancer therapies. And for too long, I think the whole industry has been aiming way too low, looking at incrementalism for way too long since until now, really. There's really been three ways to treat cancer. Cut it out since the time of the ancient Egyptians, zap it out with radiation. They're getting a little bit more specific on that and getting better at that. And then poison it with chemo and hope that the bad cells die and the good cells don't. Until relatively recently, when we're looking at the fourth pillar, which is immunotherapy, and really personalizing someone's own immune system to attack cancer. And so we've got some personalized medicines that address that. No two people are the same, and guess what? Nor are their cancers. So you shouldn't treat them as such. And that's what we do, having better patient outcomes by personalizing their cancer treatment. And so we're looking at things inside the cell and outside of the cell using a number of different approaches that have resulted in a portfolio, a nice deep portfolio.
I've heard you say license from the best, work with the best is your modus operandi. How are you doing that? And what is that portfolio that you've started to develop?
Yeah, that's right. At the end of the day, you've got to build it. The science has got to be indisputable because research and development is uncertain. So you have to have solid foundations. Otherwise, you're sort of building on something that's a little bit rocky. So we license from the best and work with the best. It's very simple. So we have assets from Yale University, the Moffitt Cancer Center, third biggest in the US, University of Pennsylvania, who pioneered CAR-T, Oxford University, and these are backed by, there must be 100 peer-reviewed publications that support this science. So, and it's peer-reviewed by others in the field, is what I mean, who interrogate it, and if it passes muster, it's published. So it's not me telling people, well, trust me, this science is going to work out. This is built on a nice, consistent, brick upon brick upon brick of solid evidence that's been peer-reviewed in prestigious journals. So we take that and then we turn them into products. So we take that fundamental science and build upon it to develop them into therapies that can touch patients.
It's a fascinating process. So I guess the best place to start might be on the cell therapy front. A lot of people may be familiar with it from the name, but can you give that overview of what is cell therapy and why is it such a hot area of interest at the moment in the healthcare field?
It's amazing because of the data. I'm a scientist. You can leave all the hot air behind. It's just about the data. And I spoke about the three pillars that have previously characterized cancer treatment. The fourth one being immunotherapy and more specifically cell therapy is the most exciting because of the patient outcomes. In short, as the name suggests, cell therapy is using a living cell as a medicine. So in this case, what we're doing is taking someone's immune cells, the same immune cells that are really good at fighting infection. You might feel them in your throat when you get an infection. That's your body producing a whole repertoire of, in that case, T cells to fight the infection. They're really good at identifying and killing foreign invaders, but not so good at identifying and killing cancer. So what we do is take those same cells out of a patient, redirect them, you put a new receptor on it that says, now you need to sniff out and kill a cancer cell. And we grow them up and put them back into the cancer patient. And this has produced results we've not seen in the history of cancer therapy before. Normally in certain types of cancer, the very first iterations of these, instead of maybe 20% of patients responding, you're getting 90% plus, and durable remissions, 10-year responses. So for the very first time in the history of medicine, even very conservative scientists are daring to use the word cure. And previously, that's been a very irresponsible word to say. But in certain malignancies now, thanks to this new type of therapy, we're seeing it in our lifetimes, and it's incredibly exciting and based on real-world data.
I know that word cure, it's so exciting because obviously everybody's going to, at some point in their life, have someone that's affected by cancer, whether it's themselves or in their family. So yeah, I can see the passion when you speak about it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's touched by it, right? 10 million people die every year of cancer. And if it's not first hand or second hand, it's definitely third hand. I lost my father to it a couple of years ago and know what our family went through. So believe me, myself and my team, when we're driven to get this to patients as quickly as possible, and we realize it's not just that one patient, right? It's that patient's family. It's that patient's friends. So we speak about 10 million people losing their lives to cancer, but it's really a multiplier of that, a number of lives that are adversely impacted by a loss of life due to this awful, awful disease.
Sure that everyone watching this will be backing you guys to make that difference in such an important space. So I guess, so that current form of cell therapy, it's an incredible technological development. The CAR Ts in their current form, very exciting, but there are some inherent limitations that I've heard you speak about. Can you give that overview about why they are there and the opportunities that your treatment may be able to feed into there?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not bagging cell therapy, the first iteration. It's wonderful. We're building on it. But like any new technological advancement, the very first iteration is as bad as it gets. And that's wonderful for patients. So you think of the very first VHS tapes that came out. And they changed the game about how you watch movies, but no one has it now. And that's where cell therapy is, which is wonderful. So the problems with current cell therapy, it takes a long time to produce these. It's very bespoke, patient by patient. It takes 22 days and hundreds of thousands of dollars to build one single treatment. The treatment only addresses one type of cancer per treatment on the surface of the cell. And because they're living cells, you have to appreciate it's not like giving a drug. When you give these living cells, they multiply. And as soon as the doctor administers that therapy, the doctor has no control. You have to just cross your fingers and hope that the patient doesn't have an adverse event. Because this therapy, unfortunately, the downside of it has very bad reactions to a lot of patients. Some patients have died because of a very severe, it's like the rabid cells go everywhere and overwhelm the patient with inflammation and whatnot. So yes, there have been some incredible cure rates and response rates, but what we need to do is several things. We need to wrestle back control and put it in the hands of doctors to be able to remote control, turn these cells, tune them up and tune them down and switch them off if you need to. And more the point, to be able to direct it to where you want to go instead of just one target. Well, what happens if the cancer mutates? Then you've got all the bad side effects of the treatment and none of the benefits. And so that's where we are now, is trying to solve all of those problems, making sure the cells don't get puffed out, because they, current generation of them, it's like they sprint, they get exhausted and they get puffed out. All of these problems, we've got a wonderful platform to treat all of them and really take that to the next level. So we're bringing Netflix to the equation, if you like.
It is an exciting space to be playing in. That obviously naturally leads us to OmniCAR. You've got your hands on it from UPenn and Oxford, obviously comes with some significant pedigree. Can you talk about how you got your hands on it and what is OmniCAR, how it plays into the modularity, the targeting, and all of those other benefits it can provide?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'll describe very briefly what it is. I'll get back to it, but it's a modular CAR T. So instead of making a bespoke cell and it's got its signaling domain and the bit that binds to the cancer cell, and you've got to make just that, and that is what it is, we've got a plug and play. It's like a Lego set. So you've got the cell, and then you can plug any target that you want onto it, and by virtue of it being modular, the doctor's got control to switch it on and off and redirect it from one cancer to another. So that's a snapshot of what it is, and that can't be understated. How we got it is a really interesting story, because basically we were looking when no one else was. So back in 2018, 2019, when the world was looking at that first generation of CAR Ts, the ones that are very bespoke and only looking at back then one particular target, I think the world was sort of sitting on the fence and said, wow, this is unexpected. We didn't expect these incredible results in a certain type of blood cancer. is there utility beyond this one cancer, or is it destined to be like an exotic ingredient on the dinner plate? We don't know what to do with it. It certainly didn't fit into the big pharma business model. The big pharma is not about making things bespoke patient by patient. They like to mass produce things and have delivery vans deliver lots of vials of it and lots of tablets. So they weren't quite sure how it was fitting in. During that time, I absolutely knew that, again, the data was incredible. If you could overcome some of those challenges, making them quicker and cheaper, making them applicable to other types of cancers, being able to make them controllable, I knew that we would open up not just opportunities for ourselves, but for the whole field. So when the whole world was looking at the current generation, I went searching the world for some of these solutions. That journey took me Europe, Australia, Asia, but it took me to the US and eventually to the home of CAR-T, the pioneers of CAR-T, the University of Pennsylvania. Some people might have heard of Carl June, who was the pioneer there. And at that stage, the patent wasn't published and the manuscript had been submitted but wasn't yet published. And under a CDA, I saw this and I couldn't believe my eyes. I think we won their confidence with supplementing the IP and helping develop the IP a little bit further before we secured a license. It was a very protracted discussion. It was like an adoption interview. Penn doesn't give licenses for these sorts of things very easily. And I think they appreciated the fact that we were looking at it the way they were looking at it, which was a genuine platform. We weren't bringing a single agenda to the table that some bigger companies do. We're only interested in lung cancer, only interested in breast cancer. We said, no, we're going to develop it in these following ways, like a genuine platform. And I think they appreciated that. And long story short, we got it. In the meantime, some other data came out that people who were sitting on the fence said, we can start to use this for other cancers. Everyone jumped off the fence, and if I had waited until then, we simply wouldn't have got it. So it was being in the right place at the right time and being a bit of a contrarian, I guess.
Yeah, congratulations for getting your hands on that. I think it's fascinating as well, the potential implications that can flow through, whether it's on licensing to third parties, the ability to enhance alternative assets, as well as, of course, being able to deliver the treatment itself. Can you talk about the, range of potential commercial outcomes, noting that we're still in the preclinical, so it will be time until this really comes into action?
Yeah, we're marching towards the clinic. I'm very aware, because I've seen this in the former life, of platform companies that crab walk sideways forever. Do not want to be one of those companies. There's a saying in the industry: you judge a tree by the sweetness of the fruit it produces. So the platform's going to be judged by how we're developing it, and we're producing products. So I'll make that very clear. OmniCAR is a platform that develops products. I'm about developing things that we can monetize and help patients with. And we've identified 3 programs, and we're marching those towards the clinic at warp speed by industry standards, but we're moving very, very solidly towards that. But above and beyond that, if we can modularize our own therapies in-house and make them next generation, guess what? Anyone developing another CAR-T, we can modularize it, make it safer, make it controllable, make it more flexible. Anyone developing a binder, we can tag that and they can leapfrog into next-gen CAR-T. Everyone out there developing their own cell types, whether it's T cells, NK cells, macrophages, or anything in between, guess what? We don't need to be zealots of a cell type. We're agnostic on the target, we're agnostic on the cell type. So a genuine platform, an enabling platform that can work with everyone else.
And just to wrap up that discussion surrounding cell therapy, there is another component, the cell therapy enhancement. You've been in stealth mode at this stage just due to the confidential space. That makes sense. But can you give the overview of the strategic rationale behind what you're trying to do there and what investors could potentially look forward to in the upcoming period?
Yeah, we're on the cusp of announcing that. That's been in stealth mode for patent reasons. We've been developing that in collaboration with the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, a world-leading cancer CAR-T research institute. And if OmniCAR is about modularizing these cells and making them next generation, so the cell therapy enhancement program is about the cell, making a better cell type. And that is, without giving too much away, it's another platform in itself that's going to be directly benefiting what we're doing in-house, but another platform that we can work with other cell therapy manufacturers to turbocharge the cells that they're making. Long story short, you want these cells to not get puffed out and to need to go where they need to go. So it is a better type of cell. Current processes are very clunky. They produce a mixture of cells. Think of it like a soup, and you want certain types of ingredients in your soup rather than others. So we produce a better type of cell product, and that's what we'll be coming out with. And if it's applicable to next generation, it's also going to be applicable to current generation. So it's really going to be something that can benefit third parties as well.
Just those two would be enough to keep you busy, but you've got the targeting therapies on the other side as well, PTX100, PTX200. Can you give us the overview of what they are and where they're currently at, both in the clinic already?
Yeah, they're our foundational assets. They're more mature. They are targeted therapies. So I've been speaking about cell therapies, which target little markers on the outside of a cell. Now we're diving to the inside of the cell. So these are problematic switches that basically send these cells to divide uncontrollably. So a healthy cell knows when to stop dividing and to even know when to die and let a healthier cell take over. But sometimes these complex biological switches, they get stuck like an accelerator pedal and they go out of control. So what these do, they in that pathway, we unstick the accelerator, apply the brake and kill the cell. So again, there's two targeted therapies, PTX100, PTX200, looking at different types of switches that they switch off that are present in many different cancers. PTX100 is in a certain type of blood cancer now called peripheral T-cell lymphoma, PTCL. It's been conducted right here in Australia under the leadership of Miles Prince, our most preeminent oncologist and hematologist. And what we've seen there in that trial so far, not only is it very safe where its competitor drugs are not, it's actually having activity that we didn't expect to see. So normally, unfortunately, for these patients, only about a quarter of them will have some sort of benefit. Some of them are good benefit, some of them are bad benefit, but on average, for that quarter of patients, it's about 3 to 4 months of benefit. What we saw is not only is it super safe, but for the handful of patients we've seen so far, we had one patient at 12 months, the other one's at 24 months and counting. She's still on therapy. And these are patients who were on death's door. So we're now expanding that in an expansion cohort right now. We're treating patients. We should have a readout on, that should be fully recruited this year, we hope, of another dozen patients. The outcome of that, if that's successful, that goes straight into a registration study. That's the big time. That's the one you take to the regulatory authorities and say, here's their data, can you please approve us? So that's pretty exciting. Our other drug, PTX200, is in another type of blood cancer called AML. It's awful. In that setting, patients typically die within sort of 6 to 9 months. Now it used to be 4 to 6 months. It's now 6 to 9 months, and we've had 4 complete remissions on that study so far, which is great. That's had fits and starts due to various reasons: drug interactions, COVID, most recently protocol rewriting. But that's ticking along as well and producing real data. And we've just announced another expansion cohort at 45 milligrams. So that should be, we're recruiting. We just recruited another patient actually, so that's going along quite well. Under the hands of Jeff Lancet, the first guy to get an AML drug approved in 40 years. This is the next study he's leading. So any of these, PTX100, 200, the cell therapy enhancements, OmniCAR, they're all company makers in their own right. I think what I'd like to convey is that we take a portfolio approach so that investors don't necessarily need to. I don't think research and development companies should be one project companies. They shouldn't be one asset companies, but so often they are. That's very binary. We've got a nice deep pipeline that's diversified by cancer type, by modality, by stage of development, all designed to add value and decrease risk.
Plenty going on, plenty of irons in the fire there. What are the upcoming catalysts that you think prospective holders should be looking at as Prescient Therapeutics continues to evolve?
Sure. So the cell therapy enhancement will be coming out of stealth mode in 2 parts. First part will be coming out very, very shortly, and the other one a month or so later. So that will be big news. That'll be the third pillar to the business, really, or fourth pillar to the business, should I say, that no one's been banking on because we haven't been able to talk about it. In the meantime, we've got all of our recruitment for PTX100 this year, all of our recruitment for PTX200 this year. We've got our ongoing preclinical development for for OmniCAR. So stay tuned on that. We're winning on the science so far, and that's wonderful. I have to pinch myself, actually. Things have been working out very well. And then there's some third-party things that we'd like to do in building a whole ecosystem around OmniCAR, which is going to add tremendous value to the company. So that's all in the next 6 to 12 months. So they're just the main highlights. So there's lots going on at Prescient beneath the surface that will bubble towards the surface.
It is amazing to hear. For those longer term holders who may have been following the ASX PTX journey for a while, or those who might just be looking to Prescient Therapeutics now, did you have any final reflections that you wanted to share?
Only that, I guess, it's an incredibly exciting time to be involved in oncology. It used to be so drab. Even 7 to 10 years ago, it used to be really drab. I've never been so optimistic and energized by it, and especially with the assets we've got in hand. You know what? I was listening to a Silicon Valley entrepreneur talk about the big determinants of success in his portfolio, and he looked at the pedigree, he looked at the amount, the people behind it, the amount you invest, the technology, and the timing. The single biggest determinant of success was timing. And I've got no doubt that with Prescient, especially with our cell therapy enhancements, it's the right technology. There's no doubt about that, but it's at the right time. 5 years ago would have been too early. 7 years from now, maybe there would have been other solutions around these problems, but we're in the right place at the right time. I see it with our interactions with other people, and I'm incredibly excited, as you might be able to tell.
Can definitely tell that, but it's such an important area as well. So everyone will be behind you and hoping that you guys do be able to form that solution, especially in such an important space. So that's the Prescient Therapeutics story. It's ASX PTX, Steven Yatomi-Clarke. It's a pleasure catching up. Really enjoyed chatting, and thank you for joining us on the channel.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.